Hey guys, welcome to the Freezerworks 2019 Learning Series, your visual guide to our sample management software. As you may already know, workflows allow you to standardize groups of tasks, so users can simply run a single workflow and accomplish several things. Prior to 2019, you could check out, check in, and process shipments with a workflow. We have now added the Sub-Aliquot Workflow, so you can standardize the very common practice of spinning down aliquots to make more. Sub-Aliquot workflows are a little more involved than the other workflow types, so we'll only get through configuring them in today's video. If you need more information about workflows in general, see our older workflows series. The videos are from an earlier version, but nothing much has changed, save for the addition of Sub-Aliquot workflows. Speaking of, let's create one of those, huh? Open Configuration, Configure Workflows. Click Add New when you reach the Workflows list view. Name your workflow, then open the workflow type dropdown and select Sub-Aliquot. You'll suddenly see more fields appear. The parent status and custodian fields determine the status and custodian for all of the aliquots you run this Sub-Aliquot workflow on, while the Sub-Aliquot status and custodian fields determine the status and custodian for all of the sub-aliquots created through this workflow. The number of sub-aliquots field determines how many sub-aliquots will be created for each parent record this workflow is run on. I'll set this to 5. Keep in mind, though, that the number of sub-aliquots counter in both custodian fields are modifiable during processing of the workflow. However, the 2 status dropdowns will be locked during processing, so make sure to set those properly at this stage. Set this one to depleted, and the subs to available. We'll make no change to the parent custodian, but we will set the custodian for the sub-aliquots. When you're ready to move forward, click Continue Configuring Workflow. Sub-Aliquot workflow tasks are structured in the same basic format as the other workflow types, except you will have to decide what happens to the parent aliquots and what happens to the sub-aliquots. Typically, this just means 2 separate entry areas on each page. Let's demonstrate this by adding a few fields. I'll start with number of thaws. As you can see, there are options for the parent aliquots value for the field and an entry area for the subs. They work a little differently, as the parents might already have values in the field you've chosen. For number of thaws, I want to simply increase the parent's current value by 1, while setting the subs value to 0, as they're new aliquots. You will also have the traditional checkbox options for each entry area, except there is a new one for the sub-aliquots. Inherit parent aliquot value. If you simply want the sub-aliquots to take their parent's value for the selected field, check this box. Lastly, note that the field current amount has a special option for the parent aliquots, reduce by sub-aliquot amount. This will decrease each parent's current amount by the total current amount of each sub-aliquot created from them. If we set the sub-current amount to 1 and the number of sub-aliquots is set to 5, each parent's current amount will decrease by 5 when the workflow is processed. Moving on to the Create Transaction page. All that's different here is that you have 2 transaction entry areas, one for the parents and one for the subs. The page and the entry areas operate exactly the same as a normal workflow, but you can create separate transactions. Notice that each entry area has its own modifiable during processing checkbox, so you can lock down the transactions for parents during processing, but not the subs, or vice versa. The shipping box page works exactly like it does in a normal workflow too, except you will choose whether the shipping box contains the parent aliquots, the sub-aliquots, or both. On the Select Export/Reports page, you still have the Before Process and After Process checkboxes, which will report on and export the parent aliquots only. If you want reports or exports of the sub-aliquots as well, check on the desired sub-aliquots boxes. The Print Labels page has been changed just like the Create Transaction page. You have 2 entry areas for labels as opposed to 1, so that you can print separate labels for the parent and sub-aliquots. Again, each entry area has its own modifiable during processing checkbox. The Set Freezer Position page becomes a little more complicated in a Sub-Aliquot workflow. There are 2 tabs for defining freezer positions, one for the parent aliquots and one for the subs. The Parent Aliquots tab contains every possible freezer position option from both checkout and check-in workflows, so you can remove the parents from a freezer, store them, or simply move them. Whatever you need to do when sub-aliquoting. The Sub-Aliquots tab only has one option, assign freezer position, since the sub-aliquots are just now being created. Check it on if you'd like to assign positions to the sub-aliquots created from this workflow. Again, note that each tab has a modifiable during processing checkbox, so you can lock down the parent and sub-aliquots freezer position options separately. Now, if you are using Summit or Pinnacle, you will also have access to the order tests and invoicing pages when configuring a workflow. If you'd like to order tests with your Sub-Aliquot workflow, notice that there is simply a second set of checkboxes for the sub-aliquots, so you can order different tests for the parent and sub-aliquots. The same goes for the invoicing page. A second set of checkboxes allows you to charge different things on the parent and sub-aliquots. Finish the workflow by determining whether you want to require a QC check for the parent aliquots before processing, and which groups you want to have access to this workflow. And there you have it, a Sub-Aliquot workflow. In our next video, I'll show you how to process it. If you need more help with the individual pages in the workflow, as I sped through a number of them, see our user's guide, watch our series on workflows, or contact our support staff. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you next time.